So we covered here Nancy Pelosi's Let Them Eat Ice Cream moment, where she showed off the luxury ice cream that she had
$24,000 fridges
stocked in her freezer of her $24,000 fridge.
Yeah.
I didn't even know you could buy a fridge that cost that much money. That's insane.
It's amazing.
Well, apparently the Trump campaign also took note of Pelosi's comments. Let's take a look.
We turn now to that $350 billion fund to help small businesses and its workers get through the shutdown.
It will be up to Congress to restock it.
But Democrats blocking that move this morning.
They asked for $250 billion in 48 hours. I said, well, I don't think so. They objected, and I congratulate the Senate Democrats.
Speaker Pelosi, what are you going to share with us from your home?
Chocolate candy.
Thousands have been forced to wait for hours at food banks all across the country.
This is
Oh my.
chocolate, and then we have some other chocolate here. We just got it restocked with the ice cream.
You don't want to eat up everything all at one time.
I can't do it much longer. I'm trying so hard.
We were, shall we say, enjoying.
Having to admit that, we're starving, and
I like it better than anything else.
Taping this segment, there are 22 million people out of work.
This specific program is about stopping job losses today.
This is hurting people bad.
Other people in our family look for some other flavors, but
Right now, it's survival move. You don't know where that next something else is going to come from.
I don't know what I would have done if ice cream were not invented. I just wonder.
You know, it's weird. One of the voices in that ad was very familiar to me. I can't
It's like
quite
a deja vu thing.
Can't quite.
I guess they're watching Rising. Smart. Right?
I don't know
Smart
how
folks.
I feel about that. But no, I mean, look, I think she handed them such a gift because it really does show the way that so many of our leaders, and this isn't a Democrat or Republican thing, honestly, they're multimillionaires.
They're all multimillionaires.
They haven't lived the way that, that you all are struggling to live right now. They don't connect with that. That's not their social circle that they're speaking to. Those aren't the phone calls that they're answering. And so, it's so thoughtless and so out of touch to put that kind of like ostentatious display of abundance out there into the world at a time when, as you put it very well, millions upon millions are filing for unemployment as we speak.
And it would be a different thing, as we talked about this morning, AOC saying, no, we need to hold the line against anything until we do a multi-trillion-dollar bailout package actually for workers. This is about bailing out the hospital industry. And as we were talking about, they have to bail out that industry because they can't admit that our entire healthcare system is completely broken. Because to do that would go against so many of their donors and the insurance industry, which is also getting some nice fat checks here. And that's ultimately what so much of this is about, which is that there's horse trading for the people, both, on the Republican side, there was a lot of corporatism that they're asking for. Then here in the Democratic side, what are they holding it up for? For hospital bailouts, not for worker payments, not for direct cash payments, not for anything. That is what the multi-day delay on the extension of this funding has been. And I just think it tells you everything about the priorities of both of our parties. I thought that ad was obviously, look, they have their, what they want to convey, but I think it is a good message. That's what we covered. It's like, how
very effectively done.
It is. And like, how can you in good conscience hold up this money while trying to extract hospital funds at a time when 22 million people were out of work? She did that segment the day before those unemployment numbers came out, and we found out that 22 million people.
But Sagar, she did put together an oversight commission on the corporate bailout fund.
Yes.
Tell us more about that.
Yeah, so of course we know about this vaunted oversight panel, this bipartisan. Well, so our friend David Dayen,
which I always love too, like oversight, like finding out that you got screwed after the fact should be the end-all be-all. But anyway, go ahead.
He appointed Donna Shalala. She's a new congresswoman from Florida, and so the person that she's appointed, David Dayen found this out, that her chief of staff is Jessica Gillen, who before this job spent 10 years as a top lobbyist in Washington for USAA Bank. Now recall, David is the one who uncovered that USAA Bank was the only bank to at least try and seize direct cash payment funds distributed by the government to cover for overdraft fees and for people with negative balances. That is who Nancy Pelosi appointed to the oversight panel, of the bipartisan oversight panel. She could have picked anybody in Congress.
Right.
And she picked her. And for the other Truman Committee that I'd suggested, like a House Special Committee that's going to investigate this stuff, she picked James Clyburn. And by the way, she also gets to pick every single person who's on this thing. It's at the complete discretion of the Speaker of the House. So there you go. Right?
Yeah.
And nobody's looking out for you.
There were also some questions that were raised by the media about Donna Shalala's stock portfolio and her buying and selling. Now, she said she has put all of her individual stocks into a blind trust now that she's head of this oversight or involved in this oversight commission. But look, I mean, it goes to a deeper point about how corruption works in this town. It's not always like bags of cash, and it's not always so direct, but these little decisions of who you staff up with and how they influence you, how your financial interests intersect with the decisions that you're making, that all lead to an overall system that is corrupted. And even if, let's say that she is completely fair-minded, she's completely objective, she's completely on the consumer side in all of this, on the average American side on all of this, what does it do to your trust in these institutions that they really are looking out for you when these are the people that they're staffed up with and surrounded with, which is almost as damaging as the issue of corruption itself. But there's no, this is, again, the bipartisan consensus, like there's no care or concern about that. It's not even noted, right? Pelosi puts her right on the panel, no problem. For them, it's just business as usual. It's not anything unusual.
Exactly. And as we'd also covered here on the show, Richie Neal, the chairman, the Democratic chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee, gave an interview where he was like, the first time this thing happened, I called Bob Rubin and Hank Paulson. It's like, whoa, wait, what?
Cool.
You called two former Goldman people? Those are the people that you called the moment that you find out you're in the middle of a financial crisis? Again, this is the man who threw a birthday party for AIG, a 10-year birthday party after the bailout, in the committee room of the House Ways and Means Committee. I mean, this is who we're dealing with.
Right. And then you're shocked when, they give $4 trillion to the big guys and the small business fund runs dry like this. Now, the only thing they're proposing is 2 days worth of more funding for that small business fund. That's the only thing that they can even think about getting their act together to pass, which, by the way, they still haven't even actually gotten their act together to pass. And it all comes back to these they seem like small things, right? But when you multiply those small things across all of these members and the way that this town works, you get these predictable results.
Exactly. No, that's the point. It's not I hand you a bag of cash and you do something for me. It's that an entire system is built up in which there's an understanding that we all work for one another in the revolving door and all of that. So there are no cash transactions involved, but the results are just the same.
Indeed. A lot more rising for you after this.